We're going to talk about an issue that doesn't really get talked about a huge amount on radio, and I don't think it's something we've talked about on this show, and we've been doing this for a couple of years. We're going to talk about postnatal depression now, because we were saying before the song, this is a thing that often goes on undiagnosed for quite some time, and when you do have a baby, people expect that everything's going to be amazing, because that's what you're told. But it doesn't work out that way for some people, and Alison Canavan is one of those. She joins us in studio now to talk about the subject. Hi Alison, how are you?
How are you? Great, thanks.
There is that expectation for mums, isn't it? That this is going to be amazing, I'm just going to have the best time ever.
Well, absolutely. I mean, having a baby is one of the most amazing times in your life, so I suppose you expect it to be one of the happiest times. And certainly during my pregnancy, I don't know about you, I wasn't told about postnatal depression or baby blues or anything, actually, and I think that's a big mistake, because I think if we're told and we're given more information, and we know, like 75,000 babies were born here last year, and 1 in 7 women will suffer postnatal depression, so that's a lot of women out there. So yeah, I think kind of like anything in life, you know, armed with information is always better. So if you do find yourself crying in the kitchen 6 weeks after having a child, at least you can go, do you know something, I heard about this in my antenatal class, or I've read about this somewhere, and it normalises at least what you're feeling. Or you can kind of I don't know, I just think it's so important in Ireland at the moment to talk a lot more about mental health, because with postnatal depression, early intervention will mean you'll get better quickly. So, you know, suffering at home in silence, and, you know, with people not, I don't know, I suppose some husbands don't understand, and partners, and then families they can't understand why you're not coping, and then mums are very hard on themselves anyway. Very, very hard on themselves. I know I was very hard on myself, and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and I think we've enough to deal with without putting extra pressure on. So yeah, I think it's really important that we support each other, and that women kind of talk about it a lot more.
Well, what's your experience then? Because having a baby is one of nature's best and cruelest assaults on the body, because towards the end you're so big and uncomfortable you hardly sleep. Then you either go through a long labour, or it takes the hell out of you, or you have a big cesarean operation. Yeah. And then you're not expected to sleep for the next perhaps 3 months, if not longer,
sleep deprivation,
of your life. So how do you tell the difference between being overwhelmed and having your hormones all over the place and knackered, and actually having postnatal depression? What was your experience of it?
I was elated for the first few weeks, like absolutely, like I was up twice a night, I felt on top of the world, everything was brilliant. I went back to work 10 days after, everything was fantastic, and then I started to decline quite rapidly, and like that, sleep deprivation, you know, is a huge part to play. Your hormones are getting back, like you've just created a miracle, you know, you've just given birth to this, look what your body's done, you know. So, you know, your body is kind of readjusting to not having a baby inside, and there's so much going on. And I think when you're pregnant, you focus on yourself, you focus on your health, you focus on your health and well-being. And then when you have the baby, all focus goes to the baby. Like everybody's focus, including yours, goes to the baby. And all of a sudden this person that you've been looking after for 9 months gets completely neglected. And I think that's what a lot of mums do. Like, we don't take care of ourselves properly. You know, we don't eat properly, we're not getting enough rest. And all of those things are contributing factors to postnatal depression. But the most important thing is that it's not your fault. You know, you are not well. You do need to go, you do need to ask for help, and there is help out there. And like all the things that I was very anti medication, I was very anti, you know, everything that I said I would never do, I did have to take medication. I had to back down for the primary reason that you need to be present for your child, and whatever you need to do to get better is what you have to do. And if it's a step on the ladder that gets you better quicker, well, then that's what I had to do, coupled with nutrition, like really important, coupled with exercising, and also counselling. You know, talking is hugely important.
Yeah, but I think Claire's kind of made an interesting question. I think we really need to focus on it. What is the difference between feeling, oh God, I can't deal with this. Oh, like, you know, when we had our son, you know, and there were definitely times when I felt extraordinarily frustrated. I felt like I couldn't cope. My wife went through the same thing. But if anyone had asked me how am I feeling, I'd say terrible. This, you know, I'm not coping very well. but I don't think I was depressed. And when do you differentiate between
Well, there's like about 60 to 70% of women will suffer from baby blues, which is completely normal, and it should pass within a few weeks. It's when it doesn't pass and you're getting sadder and sadder. And postnatal depression manifests itself in loads of different ways. So there's not kind of one set of symptoms.
Right.
That's for everybody. Like, some women will completely reject their child and want nothing to do with the child, and then some people will become completely obsessive with the child. So there's two ends of the spectrum, and they don't want anyone else looking after the baby because no one can do it better than them. For me, I was very sad. I had a complete inability to cope, to the point that I actually got to a point where I was just crying constantly, and I literally couldn't change James's nappy, and I couldn't be left on my own with him. So, you know, when the days just keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse, you do need to go and ask for help. Yeah.
How tough is it to actually say, look, I have a problem, I'm not coping? Because there is this expectation that everything's fabulous and there's baby presents and cards everywhere, and you have this gorgeous bundle of joy, and everyone who arrives is like, oh my god, it's so amazing. And for you to turn around and say, do you know what, I'm hating this. Is that very tough to say?
At the time, yeah. I mean, it's still kind of I get a lump in my throat, because I was genuinely terrified that if I said something, I'm a single mom, that people would say, well, you can't have the baby. I mean, you've these genuine fears. I was like, if I ask for help, someone's going to be like, you can't look after your baby, so we'll take the baby off you while you get better. So I had all of these kind of things going on in my head, and I was so disappointed with myself. So I was like, other people have 3, 4, 5 kids, they're coping perfectly. I have one child, I have a lot of support, a lot of help around me. Why aren't I coping? So it's all of that extra pressure on yourself, and it was really only through counselling and talking it through and it being drummed into me, it's not your fault, you're not well. And I think that's, you know, with mental illness, because, you know, if you have a broken arm, you go and get it fixed. You wouldn't walk around with it hanging off. Because you can't see it, it's sometimes really, really difficult to understand, like, and that's why, I don't know, in Ireland it's still such a huge taboo subject here. You know, when you speak about it, like, people kind of look at people when you hear mental illness like they're a bit crazy, you know, or stay away, you know, they're manic depressives, or, you know, mental health, like any other illness, has so many different degrees and there's so many different types, but you do need to go and get help. No one should be sick, you know, because they're ashamed to kind of speak up or say something. Absolutely nobody.
Okay. Presumably your GP is probably the first person to speak to if you do feel that you're having these sort of feelings.
The first point to call is your doctor.
And you know, as you said, Alison, 1 in 7 mums go through this. It's a particularly difficult thing to try and deal with, but if you, as I say, as soon as you actually go and speak to someone,
and as soon as you go and speak to someone, and there's no better feeling than the day when you actually start feeling better. It's the most amazing feeling in the world.
Do you have any advice for the people around somebody who's suffering from postnatal depression, either the father of the child or the support system? How do they handle it? Because it must be quite tough for them as well to say the right thing or do the right thing.
It is. Like, I got very annoyed with my family when they wanted me to go and get help. I got really annoyed, and you know, eventually I had to give in. Like, I was too sick, I had to. But I would absolutely go, like, ring someone like Parentline, you know, that's, you know, the only national helpline for PND, and ring them, and they're for all parents, and ask for their advice, and go to the doctor, talk to the doctor, try and get the doctor to talk, you know, to the mum if you can't talk to the mum yourself. But absolutely you need to go and get help.